Good morning, good morning, good morning, members. Can we start with the meeting? Good morning once more. My name is Sikhumbuzo Chabalala, a section manager for committees. I am here representing the Secretary to Parliament. In terms of Rule 131, this is the first meeting of the Ad Hoc Committee, and I am going to be here to facilitate the election of the committee. It is necessary for us to read for the record the establishment documents of this Ad Hoc Committee. I will therefore start with ATC number 45 of 2014, dated the 9th of April, where the Speaker of the National Assembly, Mr. Sisulu, established the committee. And the ATC is titled, under announcements, appointment of Ad Hoc Committee on President's submission in response to Public Protector's report. It reads as follows. On the 2nd of April 2014, the President of the Republic of South Africa submitted the following documents which were tabled on the same day. Letter in response to Public Protector's report, report number 25 of 2013-2014. B, proclamation by the President of the Republic of South Africa, proclamation number R59 of 2013, and C, copy of the Public Protector's report. After consultation with the Chief Whip of the Majority Party and senior whips of the other parties, I have decided in terms of Rule 2141B to appoint an ad hoc committee, the committee to consider the submissions by the President of the Republic of South Africa in response to the Public Protector's report and make recommendations where applicable. B, to exercise those powers as set out in Rule 139 that are necessary in carrying out its task. D, C, to consist of 12 members as follows. ANC 7, DA 2, COPE 1, IFP 1, and other parties 1. And lastly, D, report no later than 30th April 2014. This decision will be tabled in the Assembly for ratification in terms of Rule 2142. I proceed to ATC number ATC number 48, dated 2014 as well, rather Tuesday, 22 April 2014, where there are announcements on membership of the committee. It reads as follows. The following members have been nominated by their parties to serve on the Ad Hoc Committee on President's submission in response to Public Protector's report. The African National Congress, Frolic, Mr. C.T. Frolic, Mr. B.K. Manamela, Ms. D.E. Dlakute, Ms. J.C. Muloi Moropa, Mr. C.V. Burgess, Mr. L.T. Landers, Ms. A.F. Mutabi, Advocate J.B. Sibanyoni as an alternate member. Democratic Alliance, Ms. L.D. Mazibuko, Mr. J. Self, Dr. W.G. James, also as an alternate member. Inkatha Freedom Party, Mr. N. Singh, Freedom Front Plus, Dr. C.P. Mulder. Those are the establishment documents of this ad hoc committee. To proceed quickly to my task here, facilitation of election of the chairperson of this committee, I will proceed and invite nominations for the chairperson and request that, for the record, the nominating MP state their full name and the full name of the nominee for the record. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Doris Dlakute. I nominate Honorable Cedric Frolic to be the chairperson of this committee. I thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Yes.
My name is Buti Manamela. I second the nomination.
Thank you. May I check with the nominee if the nomination is accepted?
I accept the nomination.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any other nominations? With there not being any other nominations, I declare Mr. Cedric Frolick as duly nominated or elected by this committee as the chairperson of the Ad Hoc Committee. Can I hand over to you, sir?
An additional space to be created for just move closer. Lovely. Thank you. I've got
Let's do that.
So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, honorable members, and thank you for the confidence shown for me to perform this task. Honorable members, let me also make use of the opportunity to appreciate your presence. We understand that all political parties are currently in the last phase of preparations for the general elections that will take place on the 7th of May. And we really appreciate the fact that your parties have decided to release you from that responsibility so that you can participate in this committee. The work of the committee is guided by the terms of reference as indicated by the Speaker upon the formation of the Ad Hoc Committee. The first task that we need to do is to look at the program and the frequency of the meetings of this committee. I will thus invite proposals.
Honourable Chairperson,
Yes.
before we come to the program, may I address you on a point of order or a point of procedure with regard to the composition of the committee?
Yes.
Chairperson, the instruction from Mr. Speaker is that the Ad Hoc Committee should consist of 12 members. Currently, the Ad Hoc Committee consists of only 11 members. The composition, as we know, is that the ruling party's got 7 members, the Democratic Alliance 2, COPE 1, IFP 1, and the other 9 parties, 1 which I represent. After the announcement, it became clear that the Congress of the People was not going to take up their nomination on this committee for whatever reason that may be. I immediately wrote a letter to Mr. Speaker, and I asked Mr. Speaker to make it possible that the 9 parties that I represent be entitled to a second member of parliament, which would make it more acceptable for those 9 parties. And my colleague, Mr. Steve Swart from the ACDP, immediately also indicated from the beginning that he would like to serve on the committee. I would request that we make that possible to give the 9 other parties a second member, seeing that COPE is not going to participate in this procedure, and they've indicated so. That will not make any change in the composition in terms of the ruling party's majority, and the committee will then again consist of 12 members, and that is my request. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Honourable Swart.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for your consideration of this request, which we obviously support. Would I also, in the alternative, ask you to look at Rule 134, which allows for the co-option of a member when another member is not available. And if you read carefully, it says where that member is absent from a meeting of the committee, the chairperson may co-opt any other assembly member to act as a member of that committee. Would I ask you, and then it would enable us, I believe we as the ACDP can bring experience, legal knowledge to the committee and can benefit the committee in general, as is our track record. So, Chair, would you consider this? Thank you very much.
Is there any other comment? Honourable Self.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson, and congratulations on your election. Just for the record, we support the co-option of Mr. Swart.
Oh, thank you, honourable members. Is there anyone from the ANC?
Thank you, Chairperson. I think the first thing is that the allocation of parties to serve in committees, there's a completely different and separate process thereof, which has to do with the proportional representation of those parties. So I think that's the first thing. So it's not automatic that if COPE refuses to participate, therefore we co-opt any member of Parliament to serve in the Ad Hoc Committee. And there is clearly a contradiction in terms of what COPE wants. COPE issued a statement saying they propose that there be an Ad Hoc Committee, and then they then congratulated the Speaker for having appointed the Ad Hoc Committee, and then subsequently indicated that they will not participate. But in terms of proportional representation, that seat belongs to COPE. But the second point is that there is a different process in terms of allocation of seats to smaller parties. So it is not automatic that if there is a seat for smaller parties, therefore that seat should go to the ACDP, or I think there's that separate process which we will have to follow. So it shouldn't be given that even if we agree that we need to extend, that it should be the ACDP. We we think that whether COPE participates or doesn't participate is immaterial, but does not necessarily warrant that we co-opt a member of the and particularly from the ACDP to participate. Thank you.
Thereafter, the Honourable Burgess. And I want to bring this point to a conclusion, Honourable members.
Yeah, along that explanation, Chair, we therefore recommend that you actually handle this matter with the Speaker and bring back the response so that we do not ruffle the proportional representation or deal with it ad hocly within the committee.
Honourable Burgess.
Chair, I think we're premature here in what we're trying to do. I don't think as COPE officially notified this committee that they don't intend to participate. Until you officially notified that COPE don't intend to participate, I don't follow media statements. It's a dangerous thing to follow media statements. So until there's an official notification of COPE that they don't intend to participate, then I think the matter can be considered. And who takes the decision then is another matter.
And then the Honourable Singh.
Yeah, Chairperson, thank you very much. I think who takes the decision is quite clear in terms of the rules. The prerogative lies with the chairperson of the committee. And the rule is quite clear that the chairperson may co-opt any other assembly member. So whether that member is Mr. Swart or anybody else, but I think the rules provide for the chairperson, and we would like the chairperson to apply his mind to this particular rule of Parliament. Thank you.
So, Honourable Member.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The rule is very clear. If a member of a committee and that member's alternate are both absent from a meeting of the committee, the chairperson may co-opt any other assembly member to act as a member of the committee. And, my argument is that in order to make up the 12, we needn't refer back to the Speaker. This is something that is within your power as chairperson. And it's quite obvious to me that Honourable Swart would add value to this committee. He would add expertise. He'd add a wealth of knowledge and experience, and there's nothing to be lost and everything to be gained from including a member of his calibre to make up the number 12. We can park the issue of why COPE has relinquished its position. The question here is it desirable for us to have a full committee? It certainly is. Is there anything lost by having Advocate Swart's expertise on the committee? Absolutely not. In fact, we would benefit from it. So on that basis, I would argue, Chairperson, that you please consider co-opting him onto the committee. Thank you.
Want a second bite, Honourable Mulder?
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. I'll be quick. If I could respond to what the Honourable Manamela basically said, it's absolutely correct. There's a specific procedure in terms of which the 9 other parties come to an agreement as to who should represent them. That has been done. It's my responsibility, it's my task to consult with all those parties and to first get an indication who would like to participate. I've done that. And there's an agreement between them that I should be representing. That's why I'm on this committee. But there was also further agreement that the only other party indicating that they would really like to participate, and the other parties know that and accept that, was the ACDP. And that's why Mr. Swart is here. So we've gone through that process. That's the first point. The second one, with regard to COPE, COPE made their position quite clear in the press, that's correct. But COPE also did not participate in the task that they should have put a name forward as indicated by the process. They didn't do that. They are not here. So we can try to get an official letter from COPE, that's not a problem. The rule says the discretion is with the chairperson. So what I'm asking, chairperson, I don't want you to give a ruling now. I want you to consider what we are asking and then come back to us if possible with a decision if possible. But I think that's the way to go. Thank you.
Well, thank you, honourable members. Thanks for your input. I will apply my mind on the matter. In the meantime, Honourable Swart, you are free to participate in the deliberations that is taking place. Of course, the honourable members, as you are aware, the issue is really when it comes to a vote, right? But the honourable member, Honourable Swart, is free to participate in the deliberations of this committee. Thank you. Honourable members, the second item, apart from the election of the chairperson, was the consideration and adoption of the draft of a committee program, so that we decide on how do we proceed with the work that is in front of us. I will now give parties the opportunity to comment on their inputs on the draft program so that we can adopt such a program before we adjourn the meeting. Okay. Are you distributing it now? The Secretariat has prepared a draft, and that is now being distributed to the different members. Everyone received a copy? I now invite comment.
Can we have a moment to just peruse this? It would have been better if they gave it to us
I
earlier.
thought you were going to ask for a moment of silence, honourable member. I'll give you a few minutes. Honourable Singh.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairperson. I note we sit on Monday the 28th, which is a public holiday. It's good that at least the taxpayers will know that we are working for our money. Chairperson, nowhere in this program here do I see an opportunity to invite people to give evidence before this committee. And we would have liked, firstly as IFP, that the President, who wrote the letter explaining why he thinks that we should wait for the SIU report, be given an opportunity to come and explain himself and expand on why he thinks it's necessary for this committee to wait for the SIU report before we proceed with whatever we need to do. The second thing we would have liked to do is to invite somebody from the SIU to explain to us their process, because the letter from the President doesn't include a letter from the SIU setting out any time frames on when they expect to complete their particular report, and I think this is something that the committee needs to know. And thirdly, from a process point of view, Chairperson, what we'd like to know is what does Wednesday, 30th April mean in terms of this committee submitting a report? Will we be able to give adequate attention to the matter at hand by that particular date? And what happens to that report if we do complete a report on that particular day? And for that, I think we would need Parliament's legal advisors to tell us what happens after that. And I think for now, Chairperson, the other burning question is clarity on the terms of reference. The terms of reference have been set out by the Speaker in consultation with the Chief Whip of the Majority Party and other whips, but there are some grey areas in terms of what the terms of reference actually mean, and one would like Parliament's legal advisors to take us through their understanding of the terms of reference. Those are my points for now, Chair. Thank you.
The Honourable Self.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I very largely agree with Honourable Singh in terms of the need for this committee to hear submissions, and I do believe that amongst other people who should come to this committee should be the Public Protector herself, because she has indicated, and I refer you to the City Press of the 31st of March, in which she said she was willing to address Parliament on the question of her report. And I think that in view of the many unanswered questions contained in her report, it would be very good for the Ad Hoc Committee to have the benefit of her testimony in this matter, as well as other people who are referred to in her report. I also note that there is a submission that we received, Chairperson, from the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, and I wondered whether any other submissions had been made, but over and above, if no other submissions have been made, at very least the people who've taken the trouble to make a submission should be given the opportunity to speak to that submission. The other thing that I'd just like to raise is that in terms of the document that I've just seen, it refers here to the deliberations on the President's response to the Public Protector's report. Now, that does not seem to me to be the terms of reference of this committee, because we are asked to look at the President's submissions in response to the Public Protector's report. And that includes more than simply the President's response, because when the President tabled certain documents, as he did on the 1st of April, portentously, I suspect, that he submitted not only a letter, but also a government gazette and the Public Protector's report itself. So I think that it is entirely appropriate that we look beyond simply the President's response to look at the submissions that he made to Parliament, which submissions the Speaker quite correctly referred to this committee.
The Honourable Swart, and then I'll give the Honourable Moloi Moropa and Lakude.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm largely in agreement with the previous speakers, particularly relating to the clarity on the terms of reference and having the Public Protector address us, as well as the SIU. We are under massive time pressure, as we all appreciate, and I'm a bit concerned that we seem for today's program only to have the consideration and adoption of the draft committee report, and then nothing tomorrow, which is another whole day that we could possibly consider meeting. So maybe once we've ascertained documentation and who we should invite, there are additional days that we could maybe squeeze in, considering that we have to report back by next Wednesday, unless some further extension is obtained. But I do want to just emphasize the pressure we are under for time-wise to go through the various submissions, as Mr. Self has pointed out. So let's consider carefully our program once we have a clear understanding of what our mandate is. Thank you, Chairperson.
Honourable Moloi Moropa.
Chairperson, thanks. To the best of my knowledge, the agenda for today was the appointment of the chairperson, which we have successfully done, and the next item was the program for the committee. I think there's a document distributed to all of us that has dates. It actually, the focus is within the 30 days, the 30th of April as given, and therefore, in my opinion, the program that has been distributed, it's quite reasonable. And I think we would love to move for the adoption of this program because it therefore accommodates the dates and the time that were given as this ad hoc committee. The matter that is raised by Honorable Self about tomorrow and the documentation that is, and the documentation that is required, I really agree that we do need all the necessary documentation that goes with all the task, and we can see, by its extent, it will be quite a lot of documents that we have to go through. And my belief is that we can really use even tomorrow and the remaining days of the weekend to go through all the documentation as members that are tasked to deal with this matter. And therefore, all other matters can be handled properly within a given program and a given agenda, but I would have reservations if we start to embark on all other people who must come, whatever, while we haven't even read the documentation. And therefore, my appeal, Chairperson, is that the documentation that had been circulated in terms of the time frames and the sitting of the committee is very reasonable. Before the committee, we accept and would like to really concur if it can be adopted. If there are any other requests, let them come later as requests, and they can be considered with the understanding of all the issues that are motivated, but the dates are quite good if we can adopt that as this ad hoc committee. Thanks, Chair.
Honorable Dlakure.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think I've been covered by Honorable Moloi Morupa. So our take is that we agree with the program that is before us, and also that as a committee we must focus on our scope of work, not to focus on our mandate, not to go beyond that. And number two, we cannot have an agenda that is set by the media. So we cannot come here and discuss something that is on the media. We need the relevant documentation so that we can make a meaningful input to this and justice to this committee. I thank you.
Honorable Mazibuko.
Thanks, Chairperson. I'd like to address two issues, beginning with the scope of the work of this committee. Every single piece of correspondence, documentation referring to the establishment of this committee makes reference to the Speaker's terms of reference, which were published in the ATC on the 9th of April. And it reads, on the 2nd of April 2014, the President of the Republic submitted the following documents, which were tabled on the same day. The letter in response to the Public Protector's report, the proclamation by the President of the Republic, the copy of the Public Protector's report. It goes on to read, after consultation with the Chief Whip of the majority party and senior whips of other parties, I've decided in terms of Rule 2141B to appoint a committee to consider the submissions, in the plural, submissions, by the President of the Republic in response to the Public Protector's report and make recommendations where applicable. So I would like to respectfully disagree with the Honourable Deputy Chief Whip when she says that we are moving along with the media's agenda. We are proposing that this committee work in terms of the Speaker's agenda. The Speaker has given us a very clear mandate. It includes all three documents. It does not in any documentation, any ATC, any correspondence, and even this draft agenda which we have been given, make reference only to the President's response. It is very, very clear, even from this document, that the Speaker has established the committee to consider the submissions by the President of the Republic, and there are three submissions. So to me, it is crystal clear that we have to consider the Public Protector's report. We have to consider it in full in order to be able to make a sound recommendation to the House by the deadline which the Speaker has given us. I don't believe there is any debate that needs to be opened on this, that we simply need to work on those three documents, scrutinize them effectively, and give the House a response about what the way forward should be. And Chairperson, I would move that we clarify that now and move forward from it, and not engage this issue of only engaging the President's letter, because the Speaker has given us a very clear mandate in that respect. Given the clarity of that mandate, we clearly will need more time. I won't speak about the deadline itself, which, because of the circumstances which brought us to this committee, means that we have a greatly reduced period in which to work as a committee. But I do believe it is perfectly legitimate for us to work on Friday, which is an ordinary working day, to consider this matter. I think it's perfectly legitimate and and possible for us to work over the weekend. And I'm glad to see that we are working on a public holiday. As the Honourable Singh said, we must do our duty by the public which elected us. But we must also do justice to this process. It cannot simply be rushed. We must do justice to the mandate that the Speaker has given us. And I would argue that this programme doesn't give us enough time to do so. I agree that we need to scrutinise the documents. And we certainly would have no qualm with the committee being given several hours or even overnight to go over these documents. But I think anything more would be unnecessary given that this ATC was published on the 9th of April, 2 weeks ago. We knew before we came to this committee what documents we would be considering. Those documents were already in the public domain, the President's letter, the SIU proclamation, and the Public Protector's report. And we had ample time to read through them. But perhaps many of us didn't read through them because we didn't know we'd be deployed to this committee, so it's perfectly legitimate to say, let's take overnight and read through them. But then I would argue, Honourable Chairperson, that we meet tomorrow, once everybody has had a chance to go through the documentation, and that we do justice to the mandate of this committee as set out in the ATC and all of the accompanying documents, and consider all 3 documents which the President tabled in Parliament. Thank you.
Chairperson.
Honourable, I'm coming to you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Mulder. The Honourable Manamela, then the Honourable Mulder, and then the Honourable Burgess.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. I think the statement relating to us having our program dictated by the media stems from, I think, quotes in what has been reported or what the public protector has said through the media. I think there was mention of the city press. I think Honourable Self mentioned what the public protector said in the city press about her willing to address Parliament and also the unanswered questions. And I think there was also mention of CASAC, which I think we also bumped into the fact that they have made a submission. We've learned that through the media. So I think it's basically based on that. We all know what documents has been referred to this to this committee. We are not ignorant to that fact, and we all know how huge those documents are. Well, in particular, the Public Protector's report. In my mind, I have not determined whether the Public Protector should be subpoenaed or should be asked to appear before the committee to come and explain herself further. Honourable Self knows that there are unanswered questions, but I don't know that yet. And I'm sure that's the point that's being raised about the documents. What I think is important for us are those documents that the Speaker has referred to us, and whether what is contained in those documents is sufficient or not is something else. It is something that will determine upon having gone through those documents. I mean, we here only knew about a day or two ago that we are going to be in this committee. The majority of our members, I suppose, have not gone through the documents in detail, and therefore cannot make a determination in terms of the contents of the program. The second thing, Chair, which is important, is that we must remember that we're in an elections campaign. Yeah. Parliament was on recess, so it should not be considered as normal working days of Parliament. Some of us had to be dragged from elections campaign. Some of the members here, the Honourable Lindiwe Mazibuko has been here in Cape Town making statements after statements on this report whilst we were out there campaigning. So it's not a normal working day for us. And it's not an elections campaign, the work of this committee, for some of us. So I think that we really need to consider that and consider the fact that if you are saying that we need to balance between the elections campaign, which is what we are supposed to all be doing, and this work. I think it's going to be very difficult for us to, to be forced to make that choice. So we've left our elections campaign to come and participate in this program, and I think that that needs to be understood. The other important thing is that we have not determined whether the time allocated by the Speaker is enough or not, based on the fact that we have not gone through the documents in their entirety as the ANC. I think that we need to mention that. And I think as soon as we have made our assessment of the documents and all of that, and the type of work that needs to be done, then we will know whether the time allocated by the Speaker is enough or not. So at the point when we begin with our deliberations of the program, we will then know whether we have enough time or not. So I think all the other issues about whether we should work tomorrow or on any other day, we think that we should not consider that. We should agree with the proposal that we meet on Monday when we've gone through all the documents, and then take it from there.
Honourable Mulder.
Thank you, Chairperson. Nothing around this table should be about the election or about our campaigning outside during the election. This is about the integrity of Parliament. This is about the integrity of the Constitution and the Chapter 9 institutions. Our election campaigning, as far as I'm concerned, is irrelevant. Chairperson, what do we know? We know that we've got a deadline for the 30th of April. We also know that there's been requests to extend that deadline because the time is very limited. I would like to believe that not a single elected representative around this table is not aware of the content of the issues that we are dealing with. There's no way that we can say that we are not knowledgeable about what this is all about. I agree that there may be some technical points and there may be some details that we do not know exactly at this stage. Where does this proposed program come from? It's not a product of this committee. Maybe it's a proposal by the committee section. Thank you very much. It's merely a proposal. But for the committee now to say we must adopt this, we should apply our own minds. And when we apply our own minds, we should do that in terms of what is expected of us. Not only that there's a deadline, we know there's a deadline. But we must say to one another and agree amongst ourselves, what are we going to do? Mr. Burgess earlier referred that we do not take notice what is said in the press. So, the President refers to the fact that the Special Investigating Unit is waiting for that report. We have no official confirmation from that agency when they're going to bring that report. So a logical thing would be to ask representatives from that agency to come and tell this committee exactly what we can expect. Witnesses should not be subpoenaed. Only those who are not prepared to come voluntarily to this commission should be subpoenaed. So we can invite people to say, and the obvious thing would be, the public protector should be allowed to come and argue and put her case in terms of her report, and other people as well. So, Chairperson, I think the problem is we cannot set the program and then afterwards would say, well, what are we going to do during this program? We first need to have clarity of exactly in terms of what we are doing. What is the need that we need to do? And I would argue, how can we go through this process without calling the relevant people to come to this committee and put their positions in front of this committee?
The Honourable Burgess.
Yeah, Chair, I was just going to comment on the documents, but something that the Honourable Mulder said is a bit disturbing. To say that election campaigning is irrelevant here, I think I'm a politician, is not a nice statement. We are politicians here. I'm not a lawyer here. I'm not a man of the street. I'm a politician. Election campaigning is a very serious business. And to say that it's irrelevant here, I think is not a nice thing to say. I'm trying to put it as nice as possible, Honourable Member. Chairperson, about the documents, I've got some serious concerns here myself. I was notified, I'm not sure it was yesterday, but if it wasn't yesterday, it was the day before, that I'm going to be a member of this committee. That is a fact and that is the truth. I did not assume when I heard there was going to be this committee that I'm going to be a member. So I was notified the other day. For my own reasons, I have not read this document, the Public Protector's report. And that is the truth. I had my own reasons for not reading it. Now I'm told that I'm a member of this committee. And if I'm to participate effectively on this committee, I want to have an opportunity to read this document. I want to read all the documents. And I'm not going to read it tonight and come back tomorrow and tell you I read it, because I'll be lying. So give me an opportunity, Chairperson, to read this stuff. I think if I can come back Monday, I might. I see it's a big, thick document. People are saying it's almost 500 pages. Now, that's a serious reading. So give me some time, Chairperson. I speak for myself here. You want me to participate in this meeting? Give me some time. And I will come back and I'll tell you about all the other things the honourable members are saying. They want more time and they want to run an inquiry here. It seems like we're going to turn this thing into an inquiry, but fine. I might be able to agree after I've read these documents. But give me time. I ask you, Chairperson, can I have that time, please?
The Honourable James.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me say that our constitutional and parliamentary obligations are very clear. And in terms of what we need to consider are, in fact, 3 documents. It's a letter from the President in response to the Public Protector's report. It is obviously the proclamation that was issued. And thirdly, it is a copy of the Public Protector's report itself. That seems very clear. Those 3 documents are the core foundation of this committee's work. And clearly, there's a need to read those documents. And we certainly wouldn't want to dictate the speed by which members read these documents. But I would suggest, since we're very good at this as legislators, to read thick documents quickly, that between now and tomorrow, we can certainly complete the task. Given the urgency of the matter, given the depth of the work that we have to get done, and given the balance we need to have in terms of exercising our constitutional duty and being part of a campaign, it's important to do this properly. To do this properly, we must use every available opportunity we have tomorrow. I would therefore recommend that the documents, the time be given until tomorrow, and that we reassemble tomorrow. I would also suggest that every day that we have set aside here be set aside in terms of time, so that we start early and we end late. And so the proposal from whoever prepared this for us to meet between 2 and 6 on Monday seems to me to be not only inadequate, but entirely arbitrary. So my recommendation is that we meet, in fact, tomorrow. It will give all of us time to study the documents, and that will create more space for us to do our work. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Sibanyoni.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, having dealt with the first item on the agenda, the election of the chairperson, and presently we are dealing with the second item, the consideration and adoption of the draft committee program. I've looked to the draft committee program, and then also I want to say I would like to align myself with the views and suggestions by the colleagues on my part to say this program really looks to be reasonable, taking into consideration the amount or the voluminous documents that have to be studied. My fear is that it would appear we are sort of repeating ourselves. I will seriously move that we adopt the draft program, and that tomorrow we don't sit and then we make use of that time to go through whatever necessary document that will enable us to do diligence to this process that we have been requested to do. Thank you, Chairperson.
The Honourable Dlakude.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think I agree with my colleagues. all the time that we need to scrutinize the reports, the documents that we need to read. If we want to do justice, not only for Parliament, but for the citizens of this country, we need that time so that we understand the documents clearly. Yes, we had the public reporters, the public protector's report, but we didn't go into details of that because we were not waiting for this chance to be part of this committee. We were busy electioneering, so we request for us to do our best and justice to this country. Let us be given the chance to read the documents. There's no rush. Honorable, Monday is not that far. We can meet on Monday as per this proposed program, then we will discuss whatever we want to discuss. And as for the request for extension of the date, this is the first sitting of this committee, so I don't remember us meeting before then, so that the request should come from this committee, not from individuals or from wherever. So the request will be done by this committee after deliberating or after reading the whole document and see that we don't have enough time. Thank you, Chair.
Honourable Mulder.
Yes, Chairperson, I think we are making progress. It seems that our colleagues argue that they need some time to study the documents. I think that's a fair request. The concern, on the other hand, is that we will not have enough time to complete our work. So from the other side, there's a request that we extend the deadline. In other words, give some more time in the beginning to study the documents, but allow for more time to complete the work at the end. And I would perhaps love to have an indication from the ruling party if they are prepared to support such a suggestion, that we extend the deadline beyond the 30th of April. Because if we don't do that, if we allow more time in the beginning and we don't extend the deadline, we are forced in a small time frame. So if we give more time in the beginning, is there a willingness to extend the deadline? I would like to have some indication, please, Chairperson.
Before I give the ruling party the opportunity, the Honourable Mazibuko.
Thank you, Chair. I support Honourable Mulder's proposal. I'd also like to add that this agenda is wholly inadequate. I don't think adopting it in its current form is an option at all. Quite apart from the time, the agenda items which are listed in the fourth column from the right, on Monday it indicates that we will deliberate on the President's response to the Public Protector's report. That has to be amended to reflect all three documents as set out in the ATC. And I'd like to reiterate the Honourable James's point that the allocation of time from 2 to 6 is wholly arbitrary, and that in fact what we need to do, if we're going to agree that we give members the weekend to read these documents, is that we need to meet first thing in the morning on Monday. I believe if we can convene first thing on Monday morning and sit the entire day and devote every single day as a full day after that to working on this on these documents, and also get agreement from the governing party that they will be willing to support the call for an extension of the 30th of April deadline, then I believe we will be making some headway. Thanks, Chair.
Before I give the ANC an opportunity, there's a lot of reference to this draft program. The process up to today, and to the point when I was elected as a chairperson of this committee, was dealt with by the manager in the committee section. I think it will be unfair if we don't give him the opportunity just to briefly tell us exactly where does this program come from and what informed it. Keeping in mind, he's not a politician, he's an official. Mr. Chabalala.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just to quickly explain that the program was designed by the committee's section to support this committee that had not had its first meeting. It was informed by the date of the 30th of April, which is the deadline that has been set by the Speaker to say, working backwards from that date, this is what the committee would need to do. There is a point around the Monday, the 28th, and why we are proposing that the meeting starts at 2. That was informed by the program in Parliament, the unveiling of the bust of former President Nelson Mandela, which will be taking place from the morning until about lunchtime. So that what informed that proposal. Documents would not have been shared with members of this committee because the committee would decide what work they were going to do, what documents would be required, and with the guidance of the chairperson, only then would we be in a position to distribute or share any documentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chabalala. Yes.
Chair, just before the majority party responds, I just want to say that I appreciate the fact that the majority party members here have got a difficulty with time. But let us not forget that the majority party and the powers that be took the full 10 days that they're entitled to before they submitted their names. So that indirectly we sit with a shortened time period because that full period was taken. So I think that we need to make use of every moment that we can, and I would strongly suggest that we meet first thing Monday morning then to try to get things moving that will enable members to read the documentation. But I just wanted to make that point. I'm not laying it at the hands of the individual ANC members here, but let us...
Your point
bear
is
in mind.
noted, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Chairperson.
May I just indicate that I've been informed that, in fact, the ANC submitted their names before the 10 days were expired. In fact, it was 7 or 8 days into the process. So they've complied with the rules of Parliament in submitting those names. We understand the time pressures, of course. It is important that all the relevant documents be made available by the committee section immediately for all members to consider, to read through it and to prepare thoroughly for it. I will then ask the ANC to respond, keeping in mind that the documents, Mr. Chabalala, nothing has been distributed yet. Nothing has been distributed yet. Keeping that in mind, and also keeping in mind, honourable members, that this weekend we are celebrating Freedom Day. And there's Freedom Day celebrations taking place across the country. And I think 20 years into democracy, it is quite significant for members of Parliament generally to be part and parcel of those celebrations that are taking place. The work that we're doing is important, of course, but we must also be mindful of our 20 years of democracy. To the day, 20 years since people had the first opportunity to legitimately cast a ballot, and the majority of the citizens want to celebrate that. So the ANC, what is your response in terms of the proposal from the members of the opposition?
Thank you very much. We agree we should start on Monday. We're happy that we're agreeing with that, and that will take into consideration the unveiling of the bust of the former and late President Mandela, and that immediately after that we start with the proceedings of the committee. But our submission is that we are not going to make any we're not going to make any submissions in relation to what deliberations will take place or what specific items will take place under the agenda section of the program. The reason being that the entirety of the committee, and in particular our delegation, needs to take into consideration the contents of the report. So we cannot here and now say, yes, we will support the call for the extension of time for this committee when we have when most of the members of this committee have actually not gone through the documents. So I think it is on the basis of our going through those documents that we can then open up a discussion on Monday as to what then constitute the agenda items of the committee, whether we agree with the inviting people to come and brief the committee or not. I think let's leave that to Monday. And I think on the basis of that, we agree that we should not adopt that agenda component of the committee, that then proposals be made on Monday on what are the exact items that the committee would want to go through throughout its throughout the time allocated. I hope that that helps.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Members, there is the response from the ANC. The proposal is clear. Honourable Singh, do you object?
No, Judge, we would support that we leave out the agenda items per se, but leave the dates for now and consider extension on Monday when we meet. Thanks.
Honourable Mazibuko.
Thank you very much, and thank you for clarifying the basis upon which the draft agenda was put together. I'm happy if we can delete the agenda items and we can finalize them on Monday, and we can reconvene on Monday. I'd still like to propose that we meet in the morning. I would argue that it's possible for us to adjourn to go and attend the bust unveiling and then come back to continue our work. I feel very strongly that even if we are just talking about these 3 documents and not about the questions of who we may or may not call or invite to come and address the committee, that time is very much of the essence. And I think the more we can get done on Monday, the better. And starting at 2 o'clock shaves more than half the day away. So that's a proposal I'd like to put to the committee. If you feel it's unworkable, then that's fine. But I think we would be better off if we started in the morning, adjourned for the unveiling, and then came back. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, honourable members, I've heard all the different proposals that are here. The unveiling of the bust is between 10 and 12 on Monday morning, and there is a series of activities also that precede that. The official program starts at 10 o'clock, that's what I've been informed. However, I would then say that instead of meeting at 2 o'clock, we meet at 12 o'clock when the bust has been unveiled. And please prepare yourself for a very long day, because we will work right through late into the evening and go as far as possible in dealing with the issues at hand. I do agree that the committee section, in their eagerness to do their work, included agenda items. That is not usually the case, but thank you for taking the initiative. It has caused a good debate so that all of us are very clear in terms of what we are going to do. There's been several requests made in this meeting. The one is the issue of the Honourable Swart that I will also respond to on Monday. But then also I will engage the legal services and get a considered opinion. At the beginning of the meeting on Monday, there was a request from one of the members from the opposition. I can't recall exactly who it is. I think it's the Honourable Singh, who said that we must ask legal services to guide us in terms of the mandate and the terms of reference of the committee. We'll do so. The submission that was referred to by the Honourable Self, it comes from the... You said there's another submission that was made to Parliament that we are not aware of. Is it from CASAC? Okay, I will check with the Office of the Speaker and find out where that submission is so that we also distribute that to all the members to ensure that it is complete in line with the decisions and discussions that has taken place here. And the Honourable Singh raised the issue to ask what happened to the report. Right? What happens to the report? In terms of the current timeframes that are there, the 30th of April, this committee will cease to exist in terms of the current time frame, right? And what the Speaker has sent out. So what happens to the report, then our report will go to the Speaker to be published in the ATC. And then a decision must be taken in terms of how they want to proceed. But also keep in mind, honourable members, that when we come back on Monday, apart from looking at the submission by the President in response to the Public Protector report, that we must also come up with recommendations on how this process is taken forward. Parliament has a responsibility to be thorough in their work and to consider all the relevant detail. All the relevant detail if we want to ensure that we do a proper job. And come up in our discussions on Monday with clear recommendations so that we don't waste a lot of time in arriving at a certain conclusion, so that political parties can interact on the different proposals that they would like to see in the report that will go. The committee will thus now adjourn until Monday. Don't you want to adjourn, Honourable Mulder? You do?
I want to say something, if I may, Chairperson.
Okay, I will allow you to say
Thank
something.
you. No, Chairperson, I heard Mr. Chabalala saying just now that the committee section has not distributed any documents because they don't have clarity as to what documents they should distribute. I don't want to come Monday and then we have a discussion that we've received only one letter. We need to agree now what documentation is put in front of the committee so that the committee section can distribute the correct documentation, please.
Is that the same point that you wanted to raise? Honourable Manamela?
With regards to CASAC and their submission, I think we've got to take a decision whether we are going to consider all the submissions that have been made to the office of the Speaker or to the Chair for the consideration of this committee, because I think it's important. Otherwise, it also adds up a lot of work on not only preparing for Monday, but also in relation to the program. So do we want to consider any other document beyond what the President has referred to the Speaker? So I think that's the key question.
Honorable Mazibuko.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'd like to make a proposal in this regard, because we do need clarity and everybody must come on Monday having read and having received the relevant documents. I would like to propose that, in line with the Speaker's terms of reference outlined in the ATC, that all members of this committee be furnished with a copy of the President's response to the Public Protector's report, with a copy of the SIU declaration, and with a copy of the full Public Protector's report, and any written submissions which have been submitted to this committee. I hear the Honourable Manamela when he speaks about the time pressures we face, but without teaching my colleagues to suck eggs, we are paid precisely to receive the submissions of members of the public. We are here to represent them, and to ignore their submissions, I believe, would be callous and a dereliction of duty, particularly when members of the public have taken the trouble to make submissions, to submit them, to pull them together and to submit them. So we have to allow the public to participate. It's a constitutional right to participate in this committee, and if they want to engage with us, we should allow them. So my proposal is that those three documents and any public submissions received by this committee, formally tabled by members of the public, should be furnished to all members of the committee, and all members of the committee must commit to having read, and to have studied and considered the contents of those documents by the time we reconvene at 12 o'clock on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mazibuko, for repeating what I said earlier, that the relevant reports, you've just articulated it in a different type of English. But that is what all of us understand. Thank you for clarifying for those who didn't understand. But at the moment, Honorable Manamela, I'm only aware of CASAC. And I will have to go and check with the Office of the Speaker now, but please be assured, if there's any other relevant information, I will look at the submissions in front of me and distribute it to all members so that you are at speed on what is there. That is in the normal course. That's how committees anyway operate. Now, whether you call them here or not, that is a decision the committee must take after looking at the content of their submissions. We must not automatically accept that they will be called. Public participation doesn't work that way. Is everybody clear now? We will thus adjourn this meeting until Monday at 12. And please, honourable members, be also early enough so that you can attend the unveiling of the bust of former President Nelson Mandela. Thank you very much.